I'd like to tell you about the update kit, which is a package of all the things that we've improved when we went from Espresso Machine version 1.0 to Espresso Machine version 1.1. And if you're the owner of a 1.0 machine, I want to go through all the stuff that might give slight improvement to your espresso machine. So not everything is needed by everyone, because a lot of the stuff we improved as we were going. So let me explain what you're getting, and you can decide whether you want to leave it on your shopping cart, or if you don't need it, go ahead and remove it from your shopping cart. So the first thing is the USB cable. Absolutely everyone should replace their USB cable, because all the machines that we shipped of version 1 had a very sexy looking USB cable that was prone to melting. And I'd rather not have a melted cable or melted tablet, so this is a new maker, hopefully non-melting USB cable. Next, something that I'm sure you've been very impatient to get, everyone's drip tray cover should get replaced. The drip tray cover that was made for version 1.0, my mistake, I chose to use just polished standard aluminum, and the problem is that with time it tarnished. So this is our version 1.1 drip tray cover. It is still aluminum, but it is now electroplated. That's the same process that you find for cutlery, knives and forks and that sort of thing. However, do not expose this to detergents or acids. It will corrode. Always hand wash it. So when you do a descale of your machine or cafeza, or you want to clean this, always take it off, hand wash it. Don't expose it to acids, and it will last a long time. Ours is a year old and still looks quite nice. Next is this little spacer for the group head handle. Now you probably don't need this, and here's how you can tell. You're going to unscrew the group head handle from your espresso machine and look at this spacer. When you tilt it upside down, if the spacer doesn't fall off, then you don't need a replacement. Pretty early on, we realized that the spacer would fall out, and we added some glue, and that didn't fix it, and what we did in the end was make a custom spacer with threads on the inside. So if your spacer falls out, we're going to send you a new one with threads, and you're going to get it here and then just screw it on like I'm doing there. Next is the spring for the portafilter. Now we changed the design because we found that if the spring was really tight, which is to say the ends of the spring meet, then what happens is when you change the basket, the spring can pop out rather easily. So we changed the design so that where the spring meets here, you should have a few millimeters of clearance. Take out your portafilter, take your basket out, and take a look here. And if there is a bit of clearance, you don't need a replacement spring. But if the ends are touching as they are here, then please get a new spring from us and you can pop it out, pop a new one in. And just a word of warning, as you're putting the new spring out, they do have a tendency to fly. So work in a room where if your spring flies away, you can still find it afterwards. Finally, this one's really optional, but in version 1.1, we changed flow meters. The flow meter in the version 1.0 machines was 90% accurate. This flow meter is more expensive and nicer done, and it's 98% accurate. However, to change it, you will need a Torx T10 screwdriver. You'll need to take the screws off the chassis, take the cover off, take the water tubes off, take the electric plug off, plug it back in, and then put everything back together again. If you really can't be bothered, and I'm not sure the improvement's really that big, you don't need this, but if you'd like to have your machine working as fantastically as possible, let's send you this and you can swap out your flow meter as well. Next on the list is the fuse. Now this is the fuse that goes next to the electric plug, and most of you have a fast blowing fuse. And what that means is if there's an electrical fault in the espresso machine, the power is cut very quickly. You don't really need to change from a fast blowing fuse to a slow blowing fuse unless you're making a lot of espressos per day. The downside to a fast blowing fuse is that it has to run fairly hot so that it melts quickly if there's an electrical fault. The downside to that is if you're making a lot of espressos, let's say you're running a restaurant or you've got a food cart, that your fuse can actually get quite hot and possibly even damage the thermal compartment of the electrical port. But if you're only making something like 2 or 3 or even 10 espressos a day, the fuse that's in there is just fine. You don't need to change it. That's an overview of the entire update kit. I'm going to go through it quickly here. Please help save the planet so that if you don't need something here, please remove it from your shopping cart so we don't send it and it's not wasted. But if you can use it, no problem. I'm happy to send it to you. So going from the top of the list, we've got the fast versus slow blowing fuse. You only need this if you're making a lot of espressos. The drip tray cover, now not ugly. Everyone wants that. The new flow meter. The new flow meter is good, and there's no reason not to get it unless you really don't feel like opening up your machine and rechanging the tubing. You can just leave it alone. The spacer on the group head handle, most of you don't need this. Take the group head handle off, see if the spacer falls off. If it doesn't fall off, you don't need it. If it falls off, get it from us. The portafilter spring, once again, check on the spring, see if the ends are touching or not. If they're touching, you need a new spring. The screws for the group head cover, most of you don't need this. We switched pretty early, about the 30th machine. We stopped using nylon screws on the group head. We switched to metal. Unless they're protruding or they look kind of weird, you don't need these screws. And finally, the USB cable. Everyone should get the new USB cable because bonus feature, this one doesn't melt. Not just the update, we're happy to send anything that you need. Please talk to us about how your espresso machine's going, if you need the accessories, or if something's wearing out. We'd love to include whatever you need in your package. So let's start a conversation.